Hello, hockey fans. Welcome to our podcast. We are the Florida Hockey Bros. My name is David. I'm joined by my brother, Daryl, across the screen there. Um, if you haven't already, please check out our last video. My brother um, does a little bit of a solo act and gives his thoughts on stuff going on around the league, and he has a couple of them that have been pretty good. So check that out if you haven't already. And thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, all that good stuff that everyone says. Let's get into it, Daryl. I think the right place to start is maybe a little bit of the media. I know you want to talk about Toronto, Steve Dangle, some of these outlets, but also I think after that I'll get into as well a little bit about the Bennett hit on Marchand and how that was received by the media and all these things going around. But yeah, start us off on the Toronto media, Steve Dangle. Any thoughts that you have there, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, bro, your intros are hilarious, bro. The local hockey fans, what are you, a broadcaster?
Hello.
It's like an old-timey broadcaster.
Yeah. I want to be.
Yeah, I think for me, consuming the playoffs, obviously as a fan, you can't help consuming the media. And so I've been listening to some of the Bruins shows, right? Like, after some of the games and just kind of curious about how their teams look at their own teams. How other media people, hockey experts, fans, etc., look at their own team, but also look at your team. And as a fan, you always want to hate a little bit. So if they lose or whatever, you kind of want to drink their tears, as they say. And if you lose, then you kind of want to hate on them for, celebrating. But beyond that, I think what I've noticed is that there are nuances and differences between the different ways that medias cover teams. And funny enough, yeah, Bruins fans have lost their mind with the Bennett thing and have hated on the refs and talked about things being rigged. I don't also want to be too hard on them because at the end of the day, even though my last video I was kind of ranting a bit, every fan base thinks the same way when things aren't going their way. If another player injures your player, I know that when Letang hit Barkov and I thought Barkov was injured, I was losing my mind thinking Letang should be suspended 10 games and then Barkov was fine, right?
Yeah, so, he blew some wind at him and he fell.
Yeah, he was totally fine. But it was kind of a dirty play. And so all to say that it's normal as a fan and as a fan base for you to react when things aren't going your way. And Bennett punched him, and so I'm not also going to say that that's not a thing, but as you saw with Marchand, Marchand himself I think he was exaggerating, kind of put it on a show saying that you're trying to hit people and injure people. That was his way of actually, I think, critiquing or criticizing the Bennett punch.
No, I think he was just excusing all his past behavior.
I mean, yeah, maybe that.
Look, this guy did to me what I do to other people.
Yeah, he's been suspended 8 times. So yeah, whatever, man. I think, again, as I said in the last video, I think if it hadn't been Marchand, if it's been Pasternak or another player, maybe I would have been more sympathetic. In this case, and Marchand was trying to hit him. So again, he wasn't even Bennett going out of his way. They're dirty hits and then the dirty hits. He just knocked one in and happened to catch him flush. But anyway, I'm not saying that I'm not saying that that's okay. At the end of the day, all I'm trying to say is I don't even hate the narrative around the hit or whatever people might think of Bennett, because if Bennett was not on my team, I'd probably hit him too and find him to be a dangerous player. And that's true of other players in the league. I think of that of Frederick with Boston. I think that he could do dirty stuff here or there. Trouba with the Rangers, he could take your head off. So anyway, what I've noticed though is that the Bruins actually in the coverage have been more respectful of the Panthers, a lot more respectful of the opposition than, generally speaking, the Leafs pundits and fans. And you mentioned Dangle. I know not everybody's a fan of Steve Dangle, but he's sort of one of the faces of the fandom up there because of his reach now, and how viral some of his videos have gone. And I just find that to be such an incredible bubble and such a self-centered bubble. And I'll make a couple of observations before you talk about it and your impressions. On the fan side, the Steve Dangle side, I find a lot of those conversations that they have, and I'm just going to be blunt, incredibly idiotic. I think it is the lowest common denominator fan conversations, conspiracy theories about the league, always hating on the refs. And listen, I'm not a fan of the league. I'm not a fan of the refs. There are tons of problems with the NHL and the way that games are refereed. But I'm also tired of the conspiracy theory. Like to say that, oh, if, even in the last show, they were saying like, oh, if this player had been bunting, with the Leafs, he would have been suspended. I think they were talking about the Oilers or somebody else. And that's just so asinine. Like, it's just so stupid to be making these kinds. Like, Bunting was doing dirty stuff when he was with the Leafs, and so was Marchand, who was like the captain, and all that stuff now, like, has been suspected 8 times. Like, it's not he's gotten away with a bunch of stuff all the time. He's gotten away with some, but so have a lot of players. And so it's almost like they're just the eternal victims, and the league is rigged against them, even though it would benefit the league to have the Leafs in the finals and make a ton of money. And so that kind of silly kind of fan stuff feels almost beneath the fan base. A fan base has been around and so passionate, has been around forever. A team that's been around forever. I know they haven't won much, but it's surprising to me that it comes across as so uneducated and also so dismissive of the rest of the league, the rest of the teams. Then go to hating on the Bruins, hating on the Panthers, on the series. Like, you would expect them to do a bit better if you're going to do a podcast, if you're going to try to be more of a voice about the game, if you're trying to promote the game. And again, not the league, but the game itself. And it just seems like such an unfair take and such a dismissive take. Like, as an outsider, it just comes across as incredibly dumb and as incredibly dismissive of every other team and kind of really sour. Like, and so it really does make it easy. Like, I'll say this, the reason a lot of the rest of the fans root against the Leafs is not the team. Is people like Steve Dangle. It's like, it's just so easy to hear their show, for instance, like a couple of shows talk about the playoffs, talk about other teams, and just feel like, oh, you're just a hater. You're just like super sour. And that's above everything else, above your respect for the game, your love for the game, your respect or love for other players, other teams. And in some ways, I think it blinds them to really understand hockey and to really understand what kind of a team you need and to really understand the team that they have. And this is why they're continually disappointed, because they don't really get it. They don't really get that, what kind of player you need to have, what kind of style you need to play, why other teams are successful, how they build their teams. And, I can hate on players and respect them at the same time. Like, I hate Mark Stone. Like, I would not want to pick if my team would play Mark Stone, I would want Kachuk to punch him in the face. I would want him on my team in a heartbeat.
No, man, he'll miss half the season, bro.
Yeah, but then come back, for cheap. No, but you know what I'm trying to say? Like, there's certain players that you don't want to play against and you might root against in some instances, like quietly. Like, I didn't want Vegas to get through Dallas because I find Vegas to be a scarier team in terms of the matchup if we were to get to the finals. So there's always a bit of that. But that doesn't mean that I don't respect and admire the leadership, how tough those guys are, and they're champs now, right? So I feel like, I know that maybe Tangle at times can express a bit of that, but just one example of, it's so easy to hate on you guys. And so I would prefer for that own fan base to be more critical of its own voices and the people who are so self-centered and in such a bubble, just because it feels, again, incredibly basic. And some of the takes are really kind of, quite frankly, dumb. The whole, it's like constant conspiracy theory, constant hating on other teams, putting other teams down. And then you have to say it, like, your own team stinks. Like, your own team loses against lesser competition. They wilt under the heavy moments. They don't want to be physical. They're like regular season merchants. All the things you could say, right? This is me being a hater now. Like, and that to me feels like kind of a lack of self-awareness. And you would probably get more followers and open up your sort of, I think, conversation to a larger fandom. Without being such a hater and also being so dumb and basic in your takes. And again, you could be passionate, and I think that can attract an audience. You can be critical, that can attract an audience. I don't always have to agree with whoever I'm listening to, but it's actually, to me, feels like, I'm just surprised that it feels so basic and so like dumb fan, like, oh, the league is like rigged against my team kind of a conversation, which is taking credit away from other teams who, quite frankly, go out there and beat your ass. So that's, I'll talk a little bit about pundits and more serious, like, other conversations that I've seen recently in Toronto. But that's kind of just, I had this very visceral reaction to like the last Steve Dangle podcast, because they had a segment on the Bruins and Panthers, and then talked about the refereeing and stuff, and saying that the playoffs are illegitimate and stuff. And I'm like, they're only illegitimate because you're not in them anymore. But like that again, that's my reaction. I'm like, I can't get through this. I can listen to the rest of this, you know?
Yeah, I think it's gotten really bizarre with Steve Dangle ever since he left Sportsnet, was it? I think he's trying to do something here to maybe get a bigger audience or sponsors or something, maybe get his name out there. He's also trying to do this like insider journalistic thing, which does not fit whatsoever. Like, you nailed that on the lack of self-awareness. Like, we know what we are, for example, with this podcast. Like, for me, this is just a great way to bond with you and talk about hockey. And, you know, if it goes somewhere, great. If it doesn't, oh well. The comments don't bother me at all if they're negative. I just think I don't know if he's just trying too hard, but to me, like, my issue with him and the podcast, and it's really with him, because I think Adam and Jesse are absolute idiots. But my problem with Dangle is just the theater, you know, the acting. It's entertainment. That's great if you want to shriek and scream every 3 seconds about the Leafs, you know, sucking or whatever. But this hateful, or like this hating aspect of this personality that has come out now, where he's like, you know, clapping "Let's go Panthers" with, you know, the interference call in the background or whatever, and trying to ridicule the team, is just kind of funny coming from a Leaf fan. They're like the New York Yankees if they were like the Florida Marlins. There's nothing in that market that, when it comes to hockey, makes any sense. The coverage is insane. I know you're going to talk about Kipper and Bourne or all the other outlets. It's just insane coverage, insane opinions. We've been watching hockey for 20 years, more, 25 years. And I just, like, at some point you just have to learn about the game and know what you're saying if you're going to put out episodes like that. And that's not the only episode. They spent a whole other episode like a month ago or so talking about Gregory Campbell and the connection between the Department of Player Safety and the Panthers and how they're protected. Listen, man, if you're a Panthers fan and you've been watching the Panthers for 20 years, dude, we've never gotten any call whatsoever, any breaks.
Trocha got tripped.
Trocha got tripped before in the Islanders game when we got eliminated. I do not care. Like, I just don't care. Like, if a call goes against us, I'm going to be pissed about it. If it, you know, the right call should have been made, etc. I'm not going to whine for 7 days like Bruin fans. I'm not going to complain about absolutely everything, except the fact that, you know, the team is underperforming or whatever. There's just so many like variables. There's so many things that go into a team playing well and getting to a final, winning, whatever. It doesn't matter, but I just don't know what they're doing. Honestly, I don't know where this is coming from. Therefore, you know, he's always been entertaining, and I like his LFRs when they lose and stuff like that. And he's aware of that as well. That
it's performance, you know.
Yeah, but I just find that, like, it's just bizarre. I really find it really strange that they're going this route.
I think that they're kind of punching above their weight. You know, they're trying to become a legitimate podcast,
way above the weight,
insider, but they don't have the smarts for that, quite frankly. And again, I'm, you know, whatever. They're a public figure. You can go after them. They got the money. They got the podcast where nobody's like, we're punching up. So whatever. I just think that as fans of the game, trying to consume all of the different media, and Toronto is one of the biggest ones. You know, and they have entertaining content, right? And I think that, and also again, as it's almost like you're a little bit envious of not having this level of coverage down here, so you kind of go seek it elsewhere. But again, what's fascinating is that oftentimes the conversations kind of get derailed, and in particular with that podcast, which again is a fan's perspective, and he has a very specific audience. I'm sure that a lot of people in Toronto who are not fans, or maybe find him embarrassing, but or find them entertaining or whatever, or think it's just for fun and they're being, you know, dumb on purpose. But whatever it is, I just think that they could do so much better. They should have more guests, and I think that the reason they don't is that they would then look dumber, but, you know, or sound dumber. But it's just yeah, man, it's just weird and strange, like you said, and frustrating as an outsider, because it's so easy to refute and like argue a lot of their points, and sometimes even factually with the teams and the players and the stats and results and everything else. And so, yeah, it's just this persecution complex when they have the most money, they have the biggest market, they have everything. They're New York Yankees, and it's like, oh no, woe us, nobody likes us, and the league, it's against us, and they're never going to let us win. And I'm like, listen, you don't know how to run a team. Your front office only wants to make money and hasn't cared truly to have the kind of GM and coaching combo to really figure this out. You don't know how to draft. You haven't found a goalie. You had a lot of flashy players up front to sell.
They haven't cared true living.
Oh my God, Jesus Christ, bro. If please, like, unsubscribe if you're subscribed to the channel just for that. That's terrible. So anyway, like, yeah, bro. Like, so anyway, like, just be real, man. Like, educate yourself a bit more, show a little bit more respect for the rest of the league. Everybody's trying, everybody's, the players, the fans, it's a great game, it's a fun game. Some of us are trying to educate ourselves to bring content. As you were saying, we're doing this for fun and all that, but I'm also trying to come in a little bit more educated and trying to learn how to be more fair with other teams and try to look at other teams from the outside and think about what they need. I know later we're going to talk a little bit about the Hurricanes, about the Oilers and their struggles, and despite having really good teams. And then looking at the Panthers, I also want to know what kind of move Zetos is making, and I want to know when he's making a good move for a bad move. I want to know when, how Maurice coaches and all the different factors. I'm just interested and fascinated by all the layers of running a team and how you find success and historical trends and all that. So, and again, you're going to hate on other teams. It's normal. I'm rooting against the Bruins tonight. I'm a Panthers fan. There's no, but again, I respect that team. I respect that franchise. They play hard as hell. They never take a game off in the playoffs, which is you cannot say about certain other teams. And so, to me, I aspire for the Panthers to have. I would say that I would want the Panthers to have more of the Bruins blueprint with more talent than Toronto or Oilers or some other, or go and get like the flashy player or whatever, which is it's hard. You're not always going to get a Crosby, or even if you get a McDavid or Matthews, he doesn't guarantee a cup right away. So
yeah, clearly.
No, obviously, I'm saying, but that's the thing. Then you say, well, what's different between Matthews and McDavid as opposed to Crosby, who won right away, as opposed to Jonathan Toews, who's not nearly at their level, and Kane, but they were able to win cups like pretty young. What about the Bruins, who, with Marchand and Bergeron pretty young, were able to win their one cup in the recent generation in mega finals? So I'm curious about bringing that down. Maurice has talked about that when he came in his first press conference. He talked about the Penguins, talked about Detroit, how those teams are built, how it takes time and the ups and downs. And he opened my eyes to looking at how it actually works in hockey, right? Because we can be so blindsided by just what's happening now, and you lose sight of the big picture. And then the other thing I'll say about the other pundits, I watch, TSN Overdrive, and I watch, we listen to Keeper and Bourne and JD Bunkus and some of these guys up there. It's fun, a lot of the content is entertaining, and they do have a lot of guests. The guests usually sometimes are the best part of their shows. But I have to say, like, the other thing that's funny about Toronto is like there's such an obsession for the media, because there is so much content, to want to go after the story, that it's like now Easton Cowan, it's like everywhere, because he's in the finals in the OHL and he's having a great head of the finals with a really good team, and he might be a great player. We don't know, right? These players coming out of juniors, you really don't know, but there's signs there that he could be a really good player.
The potential's there. And
that's great. I also want to show that, and I'm using this example because I'm a Panthers fan, and this is the point of reference I have. I'm sure if you're a fan of other team and prospects and stuff, feel free to put in the comments. But, one example, like by the time of the conference finals ended in the OHL, the number one point getter was Sandis Vilmanis, who's a prospect for the Panthers. Number one, above Cowan at the time, right? Cowan got a bunch of points now in a few games in the finals, so he's passed him. But at that point, he was doing better than Cowan for his team that lost in the conference finals. He has still the same amount of goals that Cowan's in the playoffs, even though he's played fewer games. He has a better plus-minus, and Cowan has 0 game-winning goals, and Vilmanis scored 4 in the playoffs. He's a 4th-round pick by Cito, right? Coming out of, I think, Latvia or whatever. Like, he's coming from so he's still adapting to the North American style. I mentioned that as an example of like what Cowan's doing is really impressive, right? Not taking that away. Cowan also was on pace with the same amount of goals as Josh Davies, who's in the WHL, who's a 6th-round pick by Cito, who this year was on pace at one point for 50 goals in the juniors, and who scored a game-winning goal and is in the finals now in the WHL, and is already signed by the Panthers, same as Vilmanis, probably going to be in the AHL next year for a year. All to say that there's a lot of stories like Ethan Cowan out there, right? And sometimes even better, and sometimes guys that might be ready to make it, and both of those guys are really physical that I mentioned, and guys that might be ready to, a year or two away. And we're not making a big deal out of them. Most Panther fans don't, I mean, I won't say most, but a lot of Panther fans haven't even heard of Vilmanis or maybe Davis, haven't followed what they've done. Jack Devine in college won another title, was a top 3 player in college this year. Dude was a 7th-round pick, the biggest steal, and hopefully he's coming to the Panthers next season to the minors. And we got Maggie Samoskevich, who came, was in the AHL this year for a 1st-round pick, and was first in the AHL and in our team, the Checkers, in points and goals and everything else. And the same with Surdev, who was the first-line center, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, there's a lot of young prospects for the Panthers that are exciting, right? And yet, if you go by the coverage, Easton Cowan is Sidney Crosby. Somebody the other day compared him to, I forget who it was, but it compared him to
Gretzky?
No, not Gretzky. That would be ridiculous. But but somebody, I forget the name. It was in Overdrive. TS in Overdrive. I forget, it was O-Dog or somebody that compared Cowan to like a Hall of Famer. And that's the part where I'm like, come on. Like, first of all, this is how you destroy your own players, and you put so much pressure on them.
Yeah, that's the thing. Easton Cowan is going to have so much pressure. Real quick, breaking news: Craig Berube, head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Are you for real?
Yeah.
No way. And we're recording as this is happening. All right, so we're going to talk about that. We got forget the listening Hurricanes and Oilers fans. I'm sorry. All I got to say for the Hurricanes, not really end of an era, but kind of end of an era. You need to make some changes. You know what? You know what happened to you?
Oh, you're summarizing like 30 minutes into.
I'm gonna summarize for the Hurricane fans, like, real quick. You have like 9 or 10 players who are the same guy. Like I was telling you yesterday, I can rattle off like 10 names for the Hurricanes who are the same player. You need a checking line for real. Like you need to play more physical. You barely hit. You have like 20 hits a game against the Rangers. If you hit them with your style and your hustle, you would have beaten them. So you gotta figure out a more physical style of play and balance that out with your skill. And then for the Oilers, you think it's going to come easy because you have 2 of the best players in the league, and you just take shifts off and take periods off, and your team is not very balanced. Bouchard, all these defensemen who can only attack and can't defend. It's not just the goalie; it's just your defense is all over the place. You guys are always dancing, always rotating.
It's insane, man. Like when you watch them real quick on the Oilers, and I've told you this so many times, it's like everybody's just so impressed because of the movement. They're just constantly skating around and moving and fast and here and there and pass and run and shoot. And it almost feels like it's just a very disorganized team. But yeah, and the goaltender.
Yeah, and your bottom 6 can't get anything out of them because they're barely playing. 2, they're not looked at as like as important parts of the team. And your defense is poorly constructed, and you have a bunch of guys that don't know how to defend well, and it's going to keep happening to you until you actually balance out your team, and until your top players are willing to play slightly differently. I would even dare to say in the playoffs, I know they scored a lot on the power play. I know that eventually you hope that breaks through, but you got to build a team around them a lot more balanced. It's just easy to get cookies against you, at some point. If you have a good forechecking team, they're gonna, that's how Vegas beat you. That's how Vancouver is ahead. And even if you got through Vancouver, I don't think you could get through Dallas. But so anyway, those are my quick takes. Anyway, to close out on the so we can talk about Berube for the rest of the video. One thing I heard, it was McKee in the Keeper and Born podcast yesterday. They were talking about Montour. Keeper was talking about how he loves Montour. He's been in Bennett. He was saying that they should get him like years ago, and they were laughing at him. And this is, Keeper's not always right. I mean, he can have some really terrible takes, but he does know the game.
He's a crazy person.
He's it's also a character, and I get it.
Oh no, he's playing a character.
He doesn't take himself seriously, and I think that's okay. I like him. I think he's fun, but he does know the game, and he does understand it, and he understands what it takes to win in the playoffs. So he knows what kinds of players, that balance between skill and like the grit. That's not whatever. Like the actual grit. Like Montour is that kind of guy, and Bennett's that kind of guy. And McKee was obviously laughing at the idea that Nylander would have been, a worse choice for the playoffs than a player like Montour, which it's arguable based on the history. And I love that Kipper's comeback was like, You keep saying that he scores big goals in the playoffs. He has only been out of the first round once. What big goals are you talking about? Big goals is like when you score in the finals and the conference finals, like
He scored a big
Kachuk
goal.
sweeping, scoring the winner against the Hurricanes is a big goal, or Verhage eliminating Boston after coming down 3-1. That's a big goal.
And Nylander, the problem with Nylander is until he scores that goal, you're not gonna notice him. He might have.
And that's the thing. Yeah, he's not going to defend well.
But you're not gonna notice him forechecking, hitting anybody. He's not involved in anything.
And he's not helping you win and get past lesser competition for the most part. Anyway, so that argument can be had about the playoffs in particular. But the other part is like he said that he's number one choice for a defenseman. It's not even Montour, it's Tanev, which Tanev's
not even Montour or Pesci.
Or Pesci, right?
It's Tanev.
Right, it's Tanev, which is funny because Tanev is doing really well with the Stars, but I would argue that the reason Tanev is looking really good with the Stars is that the Stars have a great system with the Boer, who's figured out the defense after the first round against Vegas, and they have a good structure and they have depth on defense, and they have veterans and they have youth and they have great balance, and they might win the cup this year. And I picked them, and maybe it works out for them to get to the finals and win it all this year. They were my picks. So, but I also say that I think Tanev works out. But Tanev's going to be 35, like the beginning of the season, and is prone to injury. Like this is the last contract. He's going to want a few years. Like you want Tanev, get him, man. Because Tanev in a system like the Leafs, he's only going to make mistakes and probably be injured. And he's 35, and good luck paying him, in 2 years, whatever you need to pay him now to get him, which might not be, the 7 or 8 you got to give Montour, but Montour's 30 and probably his style can probably go another 5 or 6 years. Kind of like Ryan McDonough. It's a guy that I can think of who's still, pretty old until when Nashville was playing most of their minutes. So anyway, it's just kind of funny how there's this obsession over certain names in Toronto. Like, Tanev for some reason is the name. Montour, he's
Berube, man.
Right, Berube, who's, this is going to be really fascinating. So this transition, I'll let you go first, but I don't think this is the wrong hire per se, because when you look at the other options, they're all kind of risky. I don't think McLennan would have necessarily been better. I don't think, forget the guy who was coaching the Oilers, would have been better. I just, Gallant, it's a guy I would stay away from. He, after 2 years, nobody wants to play for him.
Gallant is really good for a year and a half.
Yeah, he's not a bad coach, but he's not a guy that you keep around long term. And Berube might not be a guy you keep around too long. You kind of give it a go for the next 2 to 3 and see if players respond. But I will say, Berube, outside of that St. Louis thing, I don't know, players were not a fan of his last couple of years, and this whole talk about like, is he an XSNO guy? Is he an advanced metrics guy? Some people say he's not. Is he going to piss off the players? Is there going to be friction? Is he going to bench guys? I don't know. I don't know what you think. I think that they have to try it. I guess is where I'm at. Like Toronto needs to try it, but I think Berube by himself isn't going to be the solution.
Yeah, I think they're gonna first reaction, because it was always kind of expected, but like you said, the other candidates didn't make sense. Craig Berube is probably the best available candidate, other than maybe Quenneville, who looks like, he got his blessings from Kyle Beach or whatever to come back and coach. But that's, I think, who they really wanted, Coach Q. But I just think that, and you mentioned this before, and I kind of looked into it, and you were right. Craig Berube isn't this world beater, this amazing coach, but we have to be careful because, we made the mistake with Tocchet, and we made, to a certain extent, some fans made a mistake with Maurice based on his record. So you can't always look at that. You look at, I'm sure Treliving is just look at what does the team need to get over the hump, or what changes can we make, and what's the right coach for that. Obviously, Keefe wasn't, his time there was over. I know Keefe is a bit of an X's and O's coach, and he likes certain things, and he wants to win every game. So he might be the right coach for the right team. I think New Jersey is probably going to get him. But anyway, it's going to be really interesting to see when the going gets tough, what, how the players are going to react. To me, it's not an overreaction, but this is going to stir the pot a little bit. because I do not see Berube as someone that's just gonna take a step back if he says the wrong thing to the media or whatever the case may be, and that's gonna get interesting because that core is already. It's almost like they're tired of it, the same way the fans are. Um, but yeah, I don't know what your initial reactions are, but I'm not surprised, obviously. But I did think that is a very interesting hire. It almost feels like my dog is going nuts. It almost feels like Treliving hire. Like this is who he thinks they should have got.
Yeah, Trey Livington seems to me kind of a traditionalist in a bit in a way. And I have to say, like, just the head coaching record in the NHL, just looking at it, I guess I hadn't really looked at it. But he coached Philly, which I guess is Kipper has said that's like his ideal destination again. Lost in the first round once, then won the Stanley Cup with St. Louis coming in, and then lost in the playoffs first or second round before missing the playoffs and being fired. Whatever, fine. It's gotten teams to the playoffs. It's a hard-nosed coach, obviously hard-nosed player, a little bit on the older side. At the end of the day, I think what I hope that Treliving has is what I think Cito had in talking to Maurice. I don't think Cito was planning on hiring Maurice. And it's funny, a lot of fans wanted Barry Trotz, who obviously ended up taking a year off and then went to Nashville or whatever. But I think that what Cito saw in Maurice was the smarts and the ability to build a program and the ability to be persuasive. And we've heard some players say that Maurice is like the most inspiring coach they've had. You could tell he's just a smart guy. Sometimes a little bit too smart, a little bit too funny, but yeah, I think you just need to know what fits the team. And I think for now, Cito knew that this was the right coach to be able to persuade the players and convince them and push them enough, but also be kind of a player's coach, because Maurice, I think, is kind of a balance of both. And I could see how it would be kind of fun to play for him. But at the same time, he can yell at you. And I think whatever they found in Berube in the interviews and his record and how he might fit the team and the culture and what he needs to bring and change, it isn't just the same old narrative. Oh, he's a hard-ass coach, therefore the Leafs have been soft because Keefe is soft. Because that isn't the only thing you need. That by itself doesn't work. Cassidy was a fit in the Bruins for a while because the team and him kind of matched up until players kind of got tired of him and he had to go. Same with Vegas. He's a great coach. He's going to push him. He won a cup, and then eventually he's going to wear out. But that's okay. I would take Cassidy for 3 to 4 years on my team to try to win a cup if I have a good playoff team. Pete DeBoer has shown that he's a smart coach if he has talent around, and he's been to the finals a few times. So there's some coaches that have shown that they can do that balance of, being a good, smart, tough coach. So I'm with you. I think it would be curious to see whether this is just kind of a safe, old-fashioned hire by Treliving, and whether the players are going to mesh with him and whether this is going to stave off the drama. I would argue that it is going to be hard to undo what Dubas and to some extent Keefe kind of created in terms of a culture there, which was not only giving the players all the money and giving them the power and giving them a pass in the public and babying them, because they have done that. And you can hear it in the way that they talk about the playoffs and after they lose, in terms of the lack of accountability, just the difference between how they sound versus other teams when they lose. So yeah, to me, great offseason drama, great drama for next season with this coach. Toronto's a fun team to follow. And there's a part of me that, I obviously want the Panthers to get a cup in the next few years. And, with the score, it would be great. I think we have good enough of a team and we can tinker it enough to make the most of what's left of Barkov and obviously the prime of Kachuk. And hopefully, if we get to the conference finals back to back, that's impressive. But I think part of me kind of wishes the Leafs could win one, but I also don't know that for the sake of what I'm seeing from the outside, I would want that to happen until they actually figure it out. Like, I would like to see, figure it out better.
No, I hope they never
to earn it. You know what I'm saying? Not just like flashy scoring or like
no. You don't want the Leafs to win it because if those fans are the way they are now, Imagine if they would.
Well, they'll be miserable then the following year, when they lose, and they would say that everybody stole it from them. Same as like Patriot fans, and Boston fans in some ways that won everything and still think that they're hunted, and have an inferiority complex with the Yankees and all that for the Red Sox.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I don't know. It's great. I have to dig into more. I'm probably gonna listen to. I mean, it's Friday, so they waited until Friday to do this, and I guess that doesn't matter. But don't know if any of the podcasts caught it as the news was happening. I had to see if Kipper and Bourne get to talk about it.
Yeah, we'll do a deeper dive on Berube or Berube, whatever you want to call him. Once some days have gone by, next week we'll have a bit more of a deep dive on him and what we expect out of the team now, which is completely unpredictable, of course. But yeah, it's awesome that there's stuff happening. And yeah, man. Anything else you wanna?
No, man. I just recommend, for I guess the way that the media covers things over there and all that stuff, just for a little bit more conversation around players around the rest of the league, not always going after the flashy names, not having such an inferiority or persecution complex, not like unnecessarily putting other teams down. I mean, you can hate, you can root for your team, but also maybe get it that part of what Toronto might need to do is to emulate some of these other teams and their like systems and the way that they achieve success. Because you're not going to win every year. I mean, there's no way. Most teams are not dynasties in the NHL. I mean, Crosby won 3 times, but they were separated, by a few years too. And so I think what you're trying to hope for, I think, is just be in it. Compete, have a chance. Look at Carolina; like they keep falling short. But you don't need to blow up that team. You can continue to do a retool with some of your talent and maybe build it the right way around. Maybe Brindamore, maybe they do need a new voice other than Brindamore. And who knows, maybe in 2 years they win the cup, right? And so those fans that had a good run, I mean, obviously Tampa has had a hell of a run. So no shame in losing to the Panthers this year. We were just happy to beat them right now. And I'm enjoying the Panthers. I'm telling myself too, like, hey, even if we get stuff with the Bruins, or if it goes against 7, or even if we were to lose, to be honest, I'll be disappointed and I would look for some changes. And I think changes are coming for the Panthers regardless, even if we made it all the way to the final. But I also got to enjoy that there were stakes and that we beat Tampa. And it's hard, man. And
it's super hard. And it's something I want to talk about earlier, but it's super hard to win. And I think we've realized that now that the Panthers are having success and have gone to the playoffs. That President's Trophy year was awesome. A bunch of comebacks, a bunch of OT points, and then we shut the bed basically against Tampa. That was a good learning lesson. And the best thing about that year, that series, is Cito learned his lesson, and we all did as well. We kind of realized what it takes to win. I think every fan loves Maurice now, regardless whether they win or lose. He's not going to get blamed. So it does matter. It does matter, the team culture. And Tampa did it really well. The Penguins have done it. The Blackhawks have done it. A lot of teams have had success throughout the years in a 10-year stretch, because of the way they set up their culture, and their GM knows what they're doing. Their scouting teams are good. And yeah, man, it's interesting, and as a fan, you have to keep educating yourself and trying to learn as much as possible. We're never gonna be like X's and O's guys or stats people or whatever, but what you watch when you watch a game, it's not always what it seems. So as a fan, it's always good to know and learn a little bit more. You see it a lot with like NFL fans. The NFL is such a complicated sport. There's so many things going on that if you're not educated on it, it's just easy to be like, yeah, Tua sucks or whoever, but yeah, man, let's wrap it up there. Maybe next week we'll dissect the Canes a little bit more. I want to do that a little bit, and now with this hire, because there was a bit of a thought that maybe Brindamore would go to Toronto. But
yeah, but I mean, we don't even know what's going to happen with Brindamore. They don't have. Yeah, they're just going to sit and wait and lose Berube. Berube had other offers. He might have said yes to someone else if they made him wait. I've heard rumors that Keith might go to the Devils. I think that would be cool. I think that'll be an interesting fit. I'm curious to see who goes to Seattle. I mean, Seattle could be a fit for Brendan Martin, the kind of style that he coaches. If he does need a spot, I think that might actually be a low-key good spot for him. But yeah, there's going to be a bit of a carousel. I don't know who Buffalo's going to hire. I don't think they've hired somebody, did they? No. It was Ottawa that hired Travis Green.
Didn't it?
They fired Granado, yeah, but I don't know if they hired somebody already. I know that Ottawa hired Travis Green, which is kind of a weird hire to me, but maybe they know someone I don't. I don't know.
Yeah,
Listen, I made a big mistake with Take. I thought Take would be a train wreck. I mean, he kind of was for a little bit.
Well, he will be. It's just that he's
eventually, yeah. But
he's a good coach. He's gonna wear those guys out.
He will. But he's got a window here between this and next season, and after that, I do think he wears out everybody.
The Sabres got Lindy Ruff.
Oh, that's right. That's why I didn't remember the dumbest. I think that's such a dumb hire, bringing him back. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong again. Who knows? Maybe he gets them straight. But it just doesn't.
Sabres and Ottawa, I think, are gonna be sort of the same next year. Maybe
we'll see. I mean, it's unpredictable, man. It's unpredictable. Yeah. All right. Well, all right, Berube, man. We'll see what happens. More drama, more curiosity for the offseason. Easton Cowan is the next David. Again, this is how it comes across from the outside guys. Like, the coverage just makes it.
And that's the thing. Like, it's not even like hating for the sake of hating, but you were spot on at the beginning of the video when you're talking about the media, or like these outlets are the ones that kind of make you hate the team.
And I'll say this. This is what I'll say. Dumb example. There's no way that this will work out in any way this way. But the example I use with Cowan and Vilmanis, this is exactly what I mean about the way that players are covered and how some of the fan base or the pundits look at players and names. Easton Cowan had 0 game-winning goals so far in the playoffs, and Vilmanis at 4. Let's say that 5 years from now, both are NHL players, top 6 players, good, productive players. And for whatever reason, Vilmanis is like Verhage in the playoffs, scoring a bunch of game-winning goals. Nobody saw him coming. Nobody has ever heard of him in Toronto, probably, or maybe they saw him in the World Juniors, where he was pretty decent for his team. Really the best player for his team. And then that's the whole, he came out of nowhere. Or maybe there's somebody else in your system that it's like, that Verhage or that, Marchment or that, that you kind of send away. And again, most teams can make those mistakes, but it's that desperation of always trying to put pressure on these guys. Fresher Minton the same. Fresher Minton kind of had the season that Grayson Sauching had, and he's a guy that I'm high on, but he's not ready to join the Panthers for like 2 years at least, So anyway, just kind of funny how that whole thing is run, man. It's just strange how it's covered.
Yeah.
Right.
We'll see what happens. All right, we'll be back next week, guys. Don't forget to subscribe if you like the content. Give us a like on the video as well, please. And more than anything, give us some comments, criticisms, whatever, support, your takes on everything that we talked about today. What's your first reaction on that Craig Berube? Do you really think he's going to be a good coach there? Is it going to be a good fit more than anything? And we'll catch you guys next week. Thank you for watching.